I've done videos on this subject in the past, but it's harvesting time again, so let me show you just how easy it is for preppers to grow herbs. First, if you're a serious prepper, then you would be crazy not to be practicing this since it is so inexpensive and since it takes so little space to do it. You can do this even if you live in a small apartment. And this is also an important skill to learn for preppers that are looking to be more self-sufficient. And something to consider is that after SHTF happens and you're breaking out your rice and your beans and your dried corn and whatever other dried goods that you've put into long-term storage, but pretty quickly you'll be getting tired of those same foods day after day. So having different herbs will really help you to add flavor and variety to these foods as they start to grow boring for you and your family. And besides being able to add different flavors to your foods, they can also add much needed extra nutrients to your diet. Nutrients that will probably be badly needed after SHTF. And if you can add herbs that have different colors, such as this purple basil that I'm growing here in some extra 5-gallon buckets that I have, but the more different colors that you can add means that you're getting even more of a variety of nutrients to help keep you healthy after SHTF. And with many of the herbs that we grow, while we harvest many of the plants when the time comes, we also let a handful of them grow to seed. And I'll use this cilantro that I'm growing as an example. Most of what we harvest when it's at its peak flavor, but a handful of the plants we will let grow to full maturity, and for two reasons. First, when it grows to maturity, it will produce seeds that we can save so that we can replant the cilantro again next year. And second, cilantro seeds are actually the spice known as coriander, which has kind of a lemon flavor to them. So by letting some of these plants grow to seed not only gives us seeds to replant the next year, but also lets us produce a spice to give us just another way to add flavor and variety to our foods. Now right now we are mostly growing cilantro and basil and thyme and rosemary and oregano. But as our garden progresses, we'll be adding even more varieties to help with nutrition and to also combat food boredom. And while there are many different ways to dry the herbs that you grow, I like to keep it simple and I just lay them on plates in my house for a couple of weeks until they are crumbling. Now we only dry out our excess herbs that we harvest, and we do this so that they last all year long and allows us to use them during the winter until warm weather returns, allowing us to grow more. Otherwise, we enjoy picking them straight off of the plant and putting them straight into our dinner that night. And folks, nothing beats pinching off fresh herbs from your backyard and adding them straight to your dinner. And I have found that as you pinch the leaves off to use them, that many times the plant will sprout new leaves. So many of our plants end up being a never-ending source of flavor for our dinners until it gets too cold outside for them to continue growing. And hands down, fresh herbs always win over the little herbs that you get from the little glass bottles in your grocery store any day. And actually, growing herbs itself is very easy. Besides needing very little space to do so, many of the seeds only need to be slightly buried into the soil to successfully plant them. So with most of them, just drop the seeds onto the soil and cover them with just a little bit of dirt, and in a couple of weeks or so, you'll start seeing them grow. And before we get to the next important subject, a link to a poll should be appearing in the upper right hand corner of the screen just about now. And please take that poll and let's see what most of us preppers consider to be our weakness in prepping. For instance, medical is probably my weakest part of prepping, so I will select the medical option. Now of course, please know that herbs shouldn't be the only thing that you should grow. As a serious prepper, you should also be trying your best to learn how to garden without store-bought insecticides or store-bought fertilizers. And what I personally like to do is that all of my food that I'm doing for SHTF is meant to complement each other. My dry goods that will store for 30 years, like dried corn and wheats and oat and spaghetti and potato flakes, but those 30-year shelf life foods can be extended by the use of canned goods and vice versa. But you can help them to complement and to extend each other by simply combining them in whatever way your imagination will let you. For instance, if you have a can of beef stew that would normally only feed 2 people, you can then pour that beef stew over a pile of your long-term storage rice, and suddenly that can of beef stew will now feed 4 people instead of just 2. And my freeze-dried foods act in the same way of complementing the other foods. They can be consumed by themselves for a special occasion after SHTF, or you can pair them with a long-term storage dried food to again extend the more expensive freeze-dried food and the dried food. And of course, anything that you can get out of your garden will only just help to complement and extend the other foods that you have put back. Just like these tomatoes and herbs that you can grow, they can also be used to make spaghetti sauce to go along with your long-term storage spaghetti bites. And any other vegetables that you grow can also be used to make a healthy side dish, or they can just be mixed in with whatever dishes that you make with your other foods to again extend those foods and to add nutrition. And of course, if SHTF goes on long enough, eventually your canned foods and your long-term storage foods will eventually run out. And that's where a renewable food source like your garden will come into play. But even if you live in an apartment or a home with a really small yard, herbs just don't take that much space to grow. All you need is a sunny windowsill or a sunny porch and you can grow them. And while you're growing them now during regular times, at least you're getting practice at growing them and drying them out, and also learning how to save the seeds from them so that you can grow them again next year. Which brings me up to my next point that I regularly bring up in my videos. I always like to buy heirloom seeds when I first start growing any type of a new crop. And that's because you can save the seeds from an heirloom plant and replant those seeds year after year, which will be very important when the store shelves are stripped bare after SHTF. So folks, if you regularly grow herbs, please comment below with your favorite herbs or spices that you like to grow and why you think that they'd be a good choice for after SHTF. And also please share on how you are able to get them to regrow every year without having to buy new seeds every year from the store. And to learn how simple it is to save heirloom tomato seeds, then click on the video that should be appearing in the upper right hand corner of the screen just about now to see how you can turn one single heirloom tomato into hundreds of new tomatoes. And if you would like to see how easy it is to dry these herbs out and then bottle them yourself, then click on the link that should be appearing on the right side of the screen just about now. Anyways folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.